So a scout troop built a frame for a lean-to as shown below. And it forms a right triangle, and it tells us the measurements, which are also here. They want us to find the measure of angle B. So when I look at this, you should recognize here's our angle. We would call that the hypotenuse. And they tell us the adjacent. So that is actually going to be the cosine function. So the cosine of x, and when we try to find an angle, we use the inverse. So we're going to do the cosine inverse of 26 over 35. And that's all. I highly encourage you to get used to using Desmos Scientific Calculator. You go here, this is Desmos Scientific, go to function, cosine inverse, and we're trying to do 26 over 35 right here. And make sure this shows degrees, because notice if it's in radians you get a whole different answer. So degrees, 42.02. So I would say x is 42 degrees, which is also the measure of. Now we are going to determine the height of the flagpole. So here's the flagpole. We're trying to find the height of that. So let that be x. And this is our angle. So this is going to be our opposite. This is going to be our adjacent. The trig function that uses opposite and adjacent is tan. So the tan of 42 equals opposite over adjacent. That would be x over 20. Put this over 1. Cross multiply. And you get 1x, or just x, equals, and then cross multiply this way, you get tan of 42 times 20. So that's 20 times tan of 42. Type that in your calculator, 20 tan of 42, and I get approximately 18.008. So I would say the flagpole is 18 feet tall. This problem, they want us to find W and X. So if you look, we have a right triangle here. So I'm going to let this be the angle I'm working with, which will make this be opposite, and that be hypotenuse. So when I write this out, I get sine of 50, because opposite over hypotenuse is sine. Sine of 50 is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, which would be W over 10. We put this over 1. Cross multiply, we get 1 times W. That's W. And then we take 10 times sine of 50. And all I got to do is type in 10 times the sine of 50, and that'll tell me W. And that is 7.66, rounded to the nearest tenth would be 7.7. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're going to find x, which is our angle. And so this is going to now be our reference angle. This is still opposite, and this is going to be hypotenuse. And remember, we know what W is now. W is 7.7. So W is 7.7. So how do I find an angle? That would be the inverse of sine. And opposite is 7.7. Hypotenuse is 11. So if I type that in the calculator, that'll tell me the angle. sine inverse of 7.7 over 11. And I get 44, rounded to the nearest degree would just be 44. So we know that x right here is 44. So putting those together, you would get the answer choice A. Alright, so we have a vertical pole that's 22 meters tall and it's 16 meters long, and they want us to find what's called the angle of elevation. So what is this angle? And so this is our reference angle. I would call this the opposite, and I would call this the adjacent. So to find the angle, to find theta, that would equal opposite and adjacent is the tan function, so that'd be tan inverse of O over A, 22, over 16. Type that in your calculator, tan inverse of 22 over 16. And you get 53.97. Let's see, they tell us to round to the nearest degree, so that means the angle is 54 degrees.